Just when you thought it couldn't get any uglier, it did. Memphis Grizzlies blown out by the Utah Jazz 133 to 109. The offense was bad, the defense was bad, the coaching was questionable. We got a lot to talk about today. Stay tuned on Locked On Grizzlies.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies. I am your host today, Damichael Cole, beat writer for the Commercial Appeal right here in Memphis, Tennessee. Going solo today without my co-host, Joe Mullinax. Send our well wishes out there. Joe, he needs to get that voice back. You know, we need Joe's full voice back here with us on Locked On Grizzlies. So give him a little vocal rest, and I'll take the reins for today. But we appreciate you guys for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies each and every day. Appreciate all our everydayers. It brings me great joy seeing you guys from all over the world tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies. We appreciate it always. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more right now. New customers, you can get $150 in bonus bets with any $5 money line bet. That's $150 in bonus bet if your team wins. All you got to do is visit FanDuel.com/locked on right now to get started. Speaking of getting started, I thought that the Grizzlies could possibly get started in the win column going into that Utah game, but I was hesitant. I think on the last episode, not to throw my partner out there, but we both talked about it, and I said, not too sure about this game in Utah. And the one thing that I pointed to was 3-point defense. You got to run this team off the 3-point line. And lo and behold, Utah hit 22 3-pointers. It was an ugly game. And as I said in the opening, just when you thought things couldn't get better, just when you thought, man, Grizzlies are 0-4, it looks bad, it got worse. For me, this was the first game where it was like, man, maybe this team isn't who I thought they were. This was the first game that thought crossed my mind. Let me clarify. It doesn't mean that I think that, because I still think all their goals are still within arm's reach. But at the same time, that performance was alarming. It was very alarming from the standpoint of, we saw in the last game, you depended on three guys, Jaren Jackson Jr., Marcus Smart, Desmond Bane, for the offense. That's not going to be, winning strategy. We'll talk more about that a little bit later. But you get Luke Kennard back. You say, yeah, you got Luke Kennard back. Then he goes 1 of 8 from 3-point range. Then you lose Derrick Rose in the process. For those who haven't heard, Derrick Rose, we knew he wasn't going to play in yesterday's game, but he's not going to play for at least another week. Derrick Rose will be evaluated in another week due to left knee soreness. So we'll see where he is a week from now. But then there goes another point guard depth option. I know he hasn't been great if you look at the field goal percentage numbers, but I think just like a lot of these players, Marcus Smart, Zaire Williams, a lot of these guys, he's kind of getting adjusted to a different role. And that's been the case with Derrick Rose. That's been the case with Marcus Smart. That's been the case with Zaire Williams. It's kind of been the case with Jaren Jackson Jr. as he faces more double teams as well. That's just been the case for the Grizzlies at this point. But it was an ugly game. How ugly was this game? You really want to know? I got one stat that kind of just tells it all to me. The Jazz hit 14 3-pointers in the first half. The Grizzlies made 13 total field goals in the first half. The Jazz hit more 3-pointers than the Grizzlies made total field goals in the first half. And yeah, you could pretty much imagine. Score, I think, was 79-46 at halftime as a result of those, lopsided numbers. But, 79 points, you're talking about, that's the most that the Grizzlies have given up in the first half in franchise history. I think the 33-point deficit was tied for the largest deficit that the Grizzlies have faced at halftime. The point is, look, everybody know I've been capping positive on this entire journey. They'll be fine. They're missing guys and everything in between. But you can't ignore that. you can't ignore what we just saw. That was ugly. And you got 2 games against the Portland Trailblazers coming up. It's not really a good team, I guess, in terms of depth and talent. We'll talk more about Portland in our next episode, but it's a young team with some talent. And it's 2 games, those 2 games against Portland that the Grizzlies should win, or I'm really going to start to question some things. I think if this team were to make it to 0-7, you got some real big questions on your hand. 0-5 in itself is just rare territory. Grizzlies haven't started the season 0-5 since 2002. Remember 2002? For the OG Grizzlies fans out there, that was Sidney. That was the Sidney Lowe days, way back when. Sidney Lowe actually did get fired that year. By the way, I don't think we've reached that point, with Taylor Jenkins yet. But still, it's just to show you how far away the Grizzlies are from being the team that's won 50 plus games the last 2 seasons. They're far from that point. But in this game against the Jazz, you struggle to find positives. Marcus Smart, 11 points, 6 assists. He did have 4 steals, but 5 turnovers, minus 28. Desmond Bane, 21 points. First game of the season, he had 0 assists and shot 7 of 19 from the field. Desmond Bane only had 4 games last season where he finished with no assists. That's his first one this year. Jaren Jackson Jr., 19 points and 8 rebounds. Sounds good, right? 5 of 17 from the field, 1 of 8 from 3-point range. I get it. Jaren Jackson Jr. can make 3-pointers, but I don't want a 6'11", 260-pound guy taking 8 of his 17 shots from 3-point range, especially if they aren't falling. He was 8 of 8 from the free throw line. Why not attack the rim and go get more? Zaire Williams, 8 points, 4 rebounds. Once again, just 2 of 5 shooting. I don't think it's that he's shooting bad. He just isn't shooting a lot of shots. 2 of 5 shooting, all were from 3-point range. So he didn't get to the mid-range jumper. Just not showing the creativity that we saw flashed in the preseason. Xavier Tillman, 14 minutes, 0 points, 4 rebounds, 0 assists, 0 of 3 from the field. Just back-to-back games where you kind of remember why when the Grizzlies were at full health, Xavier Tillman not only wasn't a starter, but wasn't in the rotation. And the list just goes on, right? David Roddy played 24 minutes. He got a lot of garbage time minutes in the second half and finished with 9 points. Luke Kennard, I already mentioned him, 1 of 9 shooting, 1 of 8 from 3-point range. And there's your story right there. There's your story. No, who's your positive? You got to go all the way down to the guys who don't play regular minutes. Kenneth Lofton Jr. and Vince Williams both finished with 12 points apiece coming off the bench. And neither of them have been regular rotation guys. Granted, we saw Vince Williams in the second quarter of this game. We saw Kenneth Lofton Jr. in the second quarter. We'll see what that means going forward because the Grizzlies are searching right now. And that's kind of what I've been saying all along. This game is alarming for a multitude of ways. I said a couple days ago, Taylor Jenkins was searching for fixes on the offensive end. He felt like after that Mavs game, they had some positives. But then it was the defense. It was the 3-point shooting, the defensive 3-point shooting that showed up and was ugly in that Mavs game. That same thing, that same issue with the defensive 3-point shooting happened again. And now tack on, going back, kind of regressing from an offensive standpoint, the Grizzlies have not showcased the depth that's needed for any quality team, on the offensive end. And what I mean by that is you've only had 3 players on the Grizzlies eclipse 20 points this season. We're not talking about a big 3 just scoring 20 points, but I feel like your best role players through over a 5-game stretch should at least score one. We have 1 game where they score 20 points. If you go over, to the Miami Heat and you say, Tyler Hero and Jimmy Butler are going to do what they got to do, or Bam Adebayo. Someone else in that group can give you 20 points over a 5-game stretch. Same thing, with the Milwaukee Bucks, the Boston Celtics, all the great teams. We see with the Suns right now, right? No Devin Booker, no Bradley Beal. Eric Gordon gave them 20 points a couple nights ago in a loss. We see with the Clippers, they have a bunch of guys capable alongside of Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. Russell Westbrook just had a big game for them against the Lakers. Like, you need guys to score 20 points. You just need those flash in the pants. And that's why I said that's what's going to be good for when you got Luke Kennard and Santi Aldama back, because it gives you more guys who have the ability to do that. Right now, doesn't look like the Grizzlies have a lot of guys that can do that. 3 guys eclipsing 20 points. If you go down the roster, no one else has scored more than 17 this season. That's worrisome. The defense is worrisome as well. So we're going to break down a lot of this coming up on Locked On Grizzlies. We got to talk about the defense, Nick. In particular, the 3-point defense. It's been a struggle this season for the Grizzlies, and we're going to break that down coming up next on Locked On Grizzlies. But before we do that, today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. See, a lot of you may not be familiar with PrizePicks. Well, guess what? PrizePicks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. It's the easiest and it's the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Look, PrizePicks is simple as it gets, man. It's just you going against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including the pros and the sharks, you just pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. It's very simple. All you have to say is, hey, I think Steph Curry will make more than 3 3-pointers in a game, or he'll make less than 3 3-pointers in a game. And you can package it up and see, how, again, 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you'll see, where the chips may fall for yourself. That's all you got to do. PrizePicks offers a reboot policy so that your entries can stay in play, even if one of your players gets injured. I know that's big for a lot of you, especially in football. If one of your players gets injured, PrizePicks does offer you a reboot policy. So if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player can be rebooted. PrizePicks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. So you might want to take advantage of that. How do you take advantage of that? Well, it's simple. Go over to prizepicks.com right now /LockedOnNBA and use the code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match of up to $100. Look, it's very simple. Go over to prizepicks.com /LockedOnNBA and you can get a first deposit match of up to $100. Take advantage of all those great things right now and head over to prizepicks.com. We're going to head over right now and talk about this Grizzlies defense coming up on Locked On Grizzlies. Welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies, everyone. I am Damichael Cole, beat writer for the Commercial Appeal right here in Memphis, Tennessee. Look, man, if you came today's episode looking for some silver linings, I really don't know what to tell you. I can talk about what needs to be fixed because listening to what the players have said lately, listening to what Taylor Jenkins has said lately, I think we have a clue. We have a clue on what the Grizzlies need to fix right now, and that's pretty much a starting point for us. Starting with the issue along the perimeter, defensively. The Grizzlies defense has allowed 89 made 3-pointers through 5 games. 89. Shout out to my guy, Sean Coleman, former co-host on Locked On Grizzlies. He posted this stat on Twitter and said that 89 3-pointers allowed through 5 games is the most in NBA history. Not just the most this season, not just the most in the last 5 years, not just the most since I've been alive, not since the most since probably any of you have been alive, unless you were here with James Naismith teaching him and helping him out with teaching the game of basketball. But 89 3-pointers, most in NBA history through 5 games. Is it luck? Is it scheme? It's a little bit of both. That's what I've gathered. At the end of the day, yeah, you got Colin Sexton just, knocking down three-pointers at a high level. You got Jordan Clarkson is a very good player, 4 of 6 from three-point range. John Collins, 2 of 5 from three-point range. Kelly Olynyk went 3 of 4. At the end of the day, there is some luck involved. What about Derrick Jones the other day, right? Derrick Jones, not known as a knockdown three-point shooter at any point of his career. This is a guy we saw in the dunk contest who was primarily known as a high-flying dunker for the majority of his career up to this point. Then he, boom, plays the Grizzlies, knocks down 5 3-pointers. Grant Williams looked like a sharpshooter, couldn't miss when he played the Grizzlies. So there is some luck involved. There is some of that. But guess what? It's not all luck. The Grizzlies are getting beat off the dribble. And Taylor Jenkins pointed to it. Guys getting beat one-on-one off the dribble. And you're saying, well, how does that lead to three-point looks? Well, if you beat these guys off the dribble, you're forcing the help. And teams, as we saw, a lot of people are pointing out, oh, the Grizzlies are rotating slow and things like that. Well, you know why these players got to rotate? You know why all these shifts have to happen? Because guys are just getting beat off the dribble. You got Zaire Williams, you got Marcus Smart, you got Desmond Bain. Zaire Williams wants to be an all-defensive player this year, right? Marcus Smart has been an excellent defensive playmaker. He's one of the league leaders in steals right now. I think he had another 4-steal game. He's had a 5-steal game. He's been an excellent defensive playmaker. Even Marcus Smart, at times has gotten beaten off the dribble. Desmond Bain said this. He said it a lot. He wants to improve as a defender, right? He's got to show it. He's getting beat off the dribble a little bit too. And it's not just those guys. It's teams manipulate matchups as well. We see getting switches against the bigs and using those for drive and kick opportunities. It's some of that as well. So there's the look. There's the schematics of it that goes just off the dribble. There's a coaching standpoint to this too, because I know some people say, man, Taylor Jenkins keeps allowing these guys give up all these three-pointers and whatnot. But here's the thing. Here's the thing about that. The Grizzlies defense, this is what Zaire Williams told me on Monday after the game. He said the Grizzlies defense is built from inside out. You want to stop the inside first and foremost. If it comes down to an open three or an open layup, they're going to give up the open three 10 times out of 10. That's how the Grizzlies roll. That's why, if you look at the numbers right now, Xavier Tillman, Jaren Jackson Jr. still are ranking as 2 of the best rim protectors in the NBA, despite all of the struggles that the Grizzlies have had. Because at the end of the day, they're not going to let teams come inside that paint and dominate. That's not how the Grizzlies roll. With that being said, at what point do you put a bigger emphasis on the three-point line? I know that's the question a lot of you want to get answered, but what if I told you you probably just you fix some things up, as you fine-tune some things, but you don't change much on that end. At the end of the day, you continue to have an inside-out built defense. You know why? I went back and saw on my Instagram story, you know how those memories pop up? Show you, a year ago you did this, or a year ago you did that. A year ago I posted a story. And that story that I wrote was about the Grizzlies defense. On November 1st, 2022, I shared it on X. If some of you who follow me on X, I shared it there as well on yesterday. And in that story, as I went back and looked at it, it's like, man, I remember the Grizzlies having these problems defensively, but it was eye-opening from the standpoint of all the things that we're talking about right now. I was talking about in that story last year. I could probably copy and paste that story last year to yesterday, just change the record a little bit, a couple of the names, because Jaren wasn't playing at that point. But the main things that were happening now, the Grizzlies were giving up a lot of three-pointers. I even wrote in that same story that the Grizzlies made Lauri Markkanen look like Dirk Nowitzki. And guess what? He looked like Dirk again against the Grizzlies. So these are probably early season problems. And you know why I'm led to believe that? Because the Grizzlies were a top 5 defense last season at the end of the year. And then you go back 2 years ago. Remember the Grizzlies started 9-10? A lot of those games, double-digit losses. And also in that stretch, guess what? Slow start to the season defensively. So my point with that is, a couple years ago, slow start defensively, you went 56 games, top 5 defensive rating in the NBA. Slow start defensively last year, giving up a lot of three-pointers. Finished top 5 defense in the NBA. Slow start defensively this year. Will they finish as a top 5 defense in the NBA? It's very possible. It's very I will admit, just like everyone else, it does not look pretty right now. But talking to the players, everyone is talking about just the changes, getting adjusted, and that's part of the game. That's part of the game for everybody. Surely every team is going through it right now. So we'll see if there are some numbers that will regress to the mean, especially with the three-point defensive shooting. I would say the defense isn't really my primary concern when it comes to the Grizzlies right now. I'm more concerned with the offense. So I'm going to talk about the offense next on Locked On Grizzlies. Before we get to that, I got to talk to you about one of our sponsors for today, and that's FanDuel. FanDuel is where you go to make every moment more. Score early on this NFL season with FanDuel, because FanDuel is America's number one sportsbook. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. Simple. All you got to do is win a $5 money line bet, and that's $150 in bonus bets if your team wins. For those of you that don't know what a money line bet is, it's simply picking a team to win a game. It can't get any easier than that. But speaking of any easier, the app in itself, FanDuel, is just super easy to use. You got a wide range of betting options. You can bet the spreads. We already talked about the money line. You got player props. You got over-unders. You got much more. How do you do this? All you got to do is go over to FanDuel.com right now /LockedOn. It's LOCKEDON to take advantage of this opportunity. Again, it's FanDuel.com /LockedOn to take advantage of everything that FanDuel has to offer. What does this Grizzly offense have to offer? We're going to talk about that next on Locked On Grizzlies. Welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies, everyone. I am Damichael Cole, beat writer for the Commercial Appeal, right here in Memphis, Tennessee, recapping all things Memphis Grizzlies with you as of late. Things haven't been pretty. Not going to lie to you. 0-5, it's the worst start since 2002 for the Grizzlies. I think that season they started 0-13. I think it was 0-8 under Sidney Lowe. And Hubie Brown took over, and I think they lost the first 5 before getting things turned around. But it's a struggle around here right now. We recapped the game. We touched on the defensive struggles. Now let's get into what I think the real issue is. And this is an issue that I think probably won't go away for a while. This is the one where you might be waiting on Ja Morant before we see this area really be kind of fine-tuned, and that's the offense. As I said earlier, defensively, we've seen this team start slow. The last 2 years, I know some people will say, well, they didn't have Jaren Jackson Jr. last year. Had Dillon Brooks for a lot of that stretch. A couple years ago, you didn't have Dillon Brooks, but had Jaren Jackson Jr. for a lot of that stretch. This year, you got Marcus Smart, and you got Jaren Jackson Jr. on the floor. But Marcus Smart has been very vocal about, learning this defense and the language within this defense and having to figure out, what some of these calls means. He's learning. But offensively, everyone's learning. It looks like everyone's learning. You see Marcus Smart playing on the ball some games, a lot. Then there are some games we've seen Marcus Smart play off the ball a lot. There isn't continuity in his role yet. Same thing with Desmond Bane. On the ball a lot some games, off the ball a lot in others. I just thought that with Derrick Rose out, you say, oh yeah, this is a game where if I was on FanDuel, I would have penciled Desmond Bain in for at least a good 4 assists. He finished with 0 assists. I know I said it earlier, but it's just so surprising to me because Desmond Bain has been such a good secondary facilitator for this team. And you think, uh, Marcus Smart starts at point guard. You probably staggered him with Desmond Bain over the course of the game. And both of those guys get a lot of playmaking opportunities to create assists for the team. Well, that's not consistently happening. But here's my real issue with the offense. I touched on this a little bit earlier, but now I want to go a little bit deeper. Earlier, I said that you haven't had another player outside of Desmond Bain, Marcus Smart, Jaren Jackson Jr. score more than 17 points. Here's why I think that's concerning more than anything. Because you, right now, your top three. Let's get into it. Jaren, let's be honest with ourselves. We got to be honest. That's how we got to get through this. Jaren Jackson Jr., you know what he's going to bring you defensively, but he is by no stretch of imagination a consistent offensive player right now. It's just not there. You know what he's capable of on any given night, but at the same time, what he scored 30 a couple nights ago, comes back in this game and goes 5 of 17 from the field or 1 of 8 from 3-point range. So you need consistency. He's 6'11", 260 pounds. He's playing power forward, so he's going to have a mismatch most nights. Didn't really have a big mismatch in this game. I think Lauri Markkanen took on that assignment. He's a 7-footer. But still, Jaren Jackson Jr. shot 8 free throws. You want to see more of that. Marcus Smart. Marcus Smart has given you a couple 20-point games in this stretch. But you go back to the Celtics. Marcus Smart was never a top 3 scoring option on any of those teams for the Celtics any year. The Grizzlies right now need him to be that third scoring option. And that's going to change when you get Ja Morant back potentially. And then you're cooking. You know, he's your fourth option, and he's another guy that can give you 20 points. But right now, it's alarming because it's not really something that Marcus Smart is going to do every night. Yeah, he's going to have those games where he can give you 20 points. And then he'll have a game like this one against the Jazz where he goes 4 of 11 and he shoots 1 of 7 from 3-point range. Then there's Desmond Bain. I think Desmond Bain is a great number 2 option in the NBA, and he has done very well in this role. Y'all know I've been beating the potential all-star drum all off season, early on in the season, but he's not your number 1 option. So my concern is something we haven't even seen yet. I mean, what about the clutch situations? What's gonna be the difference? Who's gonna be the guy? Who's gonna be the go-to guy? We don't know yet because we haven't seen it. This offense doesn't have the depth yet. You talk about the offensive rebounder that you're missing with Steven Adams, the screen assist that you're missing with Steven Adams. Luke Kennard was a guy that, it's early. I mean, the calendar just turned to October, but remember, I can hold myself accountable. I said that this guy could be, a potential 6-man of the year candidate. He is someone who should factor into that conversation, and he's making me look like I don't know what I'm talking about right now. 1 of 9 shooting for Luke Kennard, 1 of 8 from 3-point range, and I feel like it's deeper than that. It's much deeper than that because if you go to the other game that he played, remember, against the Pelicans, Luke Kennard, 3 points, 0 of 5 from 3-point range. Luke Kennard is 1 of 13 from 3-point range. This is a guy who's led the NBA in 3-point percentage each of the last 2 seasons. Like, he's money. When he came to the Grizzlies after the February trade deadline, it felt like every open shot was going in. Right now, that's just not the case with him. Defenses are guarding him a little bit different. The book's out there, but he's missed some open looks. Like, he had a couple shots against the Jazz where he pump fake, got his feet set, got a good shot, and missed them. So you can't rely on him right now. I wouldn't call Marcus Smart and Jaren Jackson Jr. reliable scoring options for the roles that they're being forced to play right now. If Marcus Smart is your 4th guy, I think you win if he has an 11-point night one night and a 20-point night the next night. But as a top 3 guy, you need him to bring it a little bit more consistently until you get Ja back. That's the situation right now. I don't see an immediate answer to this offense because you got Luke Kennard back. You're going to get Santi back. You're going to get more depth in that case. But the offensive struggles are much more alarming than the defensive ones to me for the Memphis Grizzlies. I want to see, more guys. I want to see Zaire, take more than 5 shots and all 5 being from 3-point range. Like, get to the basket. Zaire Williams is a great finisher at this point of his career. He has an excellent mid-range jumper. Get to them. Get to those shots. Just like we've seen him, shoot the 3-point shots. David Roddy. We call him Big Body Roddy. We need to see him get downhill. Use that big body to create advantages, to create fouls, to create efficient shots for himself. So overall, the Grizzlies got a lot of improvement to make on that end in terms of offense. Thank you for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies on today. I appreciate you guys for tuning in today's show. Make sure you tune in on tomorrow as well, because guess what? The Bismack Biyombo signing is official now. We mentioned this name on this episode, but we got to take a deep dive tomorrow. We're going to talk about what Bismack Biyombo really means to the Grizzlies, and then we're going to preview an important game. Look, it's not really a must-win, but, man, I'll say it first. It'll be embarrassing if the Grizzlies were to lose against the Portland Trail Blazers. But we'll get to that when we get to that. I'll save that for the next episode. But until then, thank you guys for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies. And remember, we're free and available wherever you get your podcast. Until next time, I'm Damichael Cole. We'll see you on Locked On Grizzlies.